Today, my topic is Ralph Waldo Emerson's self-reliance. About Ralph Waldo Emerson, he was born in Boston, Massachusetts, United States in the year 1803. He is an American essayist, philosopher, orator, poet, and author. He became known throughout the nation as the Sage of Concord. He was the founder of the Transcendental Club in Concord. He was the most influential figure in the history of Transcendentalism in America. A small prose poem, Nature, has been called the Bible of Transcendentalism. It was more philosophical than naturalistic. He devoted himself to the task of intellectual exploration. He was an individualist who stressed on the reform of the individuals. Many writers who came later like Walt Whitman, Robert Frost, and Wallace Stevens were greatly influenced by him. Emerson, like Thoreau and other transcendentalists, was influenced by the concept of selfhood and found in Hindu scripture a well-elaborated doctrine of self. He knew laws of Manu, Vishnu Purana, the Bhagavad Gita, and the Upanishads. His poetry echoes Vedanta in form as well as in content. Henry David Thoreau is his best friend. No two authors seem closer than Emerson and Thoreau. Emerson was the editor of the journal The Dial. This journal served as the official outlet for transcendentalists like Thoreau, Theodore Parker, Margaret Fuller, and many. The transcendentalists, they were against the science and rationalism. They believed that they could have a direct relationship with God. Man can intuitively grasp the ultimate truth. And the famous work of Emerson. His famous essays are Oversoul, the Divinity School Address, and the very famous one, The American Scholar. This work is considered to be a American's intellectual declaration of independence. And his famous poems are Each and All, The Problem, Hemetria, and Brahma. Now about the essay Self-Reliance. In that, many topics are discussed. First one is self-reliance as the symbol of genius. In this essay, Emerson tells that to believe your own thought. Believe what is true for you in your private heart is true for all men. This is the mark of genius according to Emerson. A man should try to learn to detect and watch the gleam of light which comes from within rather than the luster of the works of the bards and sages. A man of genius is he who speaks not what he is taught, but what he has learnt from others. This great and noble achievement is possible only when a man acts according to his own convictions and belief. So, the self-reliance is the symbol of genius. The next one is imitation is suicidal. So, in one stage, man can realize that envy is ignorance and imitation is suicide. Though The universe is full of good things, but man will get only that for which he work hard. He can realize his abilities only when he has tried himself. He is relieved when he has put his heart into his work and done his best. But when he has done otherwise, he shall not get no peace. Imitation can bring him no deliverance. So it means his virginality and his own geniusness will not come out from him. So according to Emerson, envy is ignorance and imitation is suicide. The next topic is the man of self-reliance. Emerson says, trust thyself. Every person must accept the place that God has allotted him. He must also accept the society of his contemporaries despite its weakness. Great men have always acted this way. They have always realized that God resides in their hearts. They are the men who have accepted their destiny. They are afraid of nothing and act with courage and determination. They are have brave, possessing modest mind, noblest mind. And they are not cowards. They are the guides, redeemers and benefactors, obeying the dictates of the Almighty and advancing on chaos and the dark. Therefore, one needs to truth oneself. That is, trust oneself. The next topic is non-conformity of self-reliant man. A self-reliant man is non-conformist. He does not conform to anybody. Rather, he makes others conform to him. Infancy conforms to nobody. All conform to it. Youth should not be thought of as having no force to be put by if it will stand by itself. He does not care for the opinion of others, nor is he afraid to contradict himself. If he is convinced that a different opinion must be expressed. Emerson says the society is a joint stock company. Society does not recommend self-reliance. It recognizes conformity to rules and customs. But a real man should be a non-conformist. But when he is required to conform his goodness, nothing is scared. That is, nothing is sacred except the integrity of one's own mind. No law can be sacred except the law of one's own nature. Next topic is sincerity and honesty in self-reliance. Man's good actions impress others. Such people have charitable natures. They do good deeds as an apology for their living in this world. Their virtues are like penance. But such people should wish to live, not experience. A man's life must be for the sake of itself, not intended for a spectacle. Man should not exhibit his charitable nature. This is usually been among the people. He should live a life on a lower strain, but he should not live with honesty and sincerity. The most important thing is that a man should be a man, and so he should impress others as man without making a show of his deeds whatsoever. It matters little what others think of his action, though it is very difficult to practice it in actual and intellectual life. It makes a real distinction between greatness and meanness. The next topic is integrity of the mind. Nothing is sacred but the integrity of the mind. Emerson says, "Absolve you to yourself, and you shall have the suffrage of the world." Only the law of nature is sacred and no other is so. Good and bad are but names very readily transferable to this or that. Nobody can assume the garb of philanthropy if he is malicious and vain. Every decent and well-spoken individual affects and sways more than is right. There are people who are wicked and put on the garb of charity. They are really foolish philanthropists. The next one is conformity to the past usage. Emerson speaks against conformity to the past traditions and customs. According to him, this conformity weakens energy. It wastes man's time and dims the impression of characters. If a person is a slave to customs and usage, he diminishes his force and power, but if he does his work in accordance with his own nature, he strengthens himself. According to Emerson, conformity is a game like blind man's bluff. For men have blinded their eyes with handkerchief, that is here customs and traditions, etc. Non-conformity is generally not liked in the world, and people are displeased with the non-conformist should face the world's displeasure bravely. He should do it boldly. Here the next one is consistency, a negation of self-trust. Like conformity, consistency is also a negation of self-trust. Consistency implies a reverence for what we have said or done in the past. But Emerson asks, why is it necessary for us to remember what we have done or said in the past? We should not be afraid of contradicting what we have said earlier. There is no sin in doing so. Our views and opinions change with the passage of time. Therefore, there is no harm in contradicting our opinions. We should not bring the past for judging our present actions and present talk. Consistency is admired by statesmen, philosophers, and divines who are of low stature. That is a low respect coming from their achievement or development. A great soul has nothing to do with consistency. Next one is genuine actions, honesty and sincerity. The actions of man have intrinsic unity, that is inherent unity. There is a unity in diversity. A man's genuine action will explain itself and his other actions also that are genuine. Conformity does not explain anything. The force of character is cumulative. All the past deeds of man determine the total impression that he leaves behind him. The heroes of the past have been the persons who were conscious of having done so many great deeds. So, a person is not judged by a single action, but by the sum total of what he has said or done in the course of his life. The next topic is the key to noble achievements. Noble achievements cannot be got through conformity of consistency. Therefore, they should be discarded. Rather, they must be mocked and laughed at. Every true person requires infinity space and number and time fully to accomplish the design. Even noble situation is the lengthened shadow of man. For instance, the Reformation was the result of the initiative of one man, that is Martin Luther. Likewise, Quakerism was the work of one man, that is George Fox. And Methodism was the result of the efforts of the John Wesley, and the matter of the abolition of slavery was first taken up by Clarence. In other words, it can be said that all history can be summarized around a few earnest personalities. Therefore, a man should know his worth. He must have control over what he says and what he does. He should not have any feeling of inferiority. He is not a non-entity or an intruder in the great world before him. Let him be a prince, a master of the whole world which was spread before him. Self-confidence and self-reliance are the two aspects of the same principle. The next topic is intuition and instinct, original action. Man must cultivate the habit of reading right things. In the present, our reading is mendicant and psychopathic. Here, mendicant means given to begging. The next one, psychopathic, means a person behaving or done in an obedient way in order to gain advantage. So, the kings and lords as told in history are described as creatures of the gigantic image who did not bother for the common man. We bow before them and pay reverence. We forget that virtue was not exhausted by such great men. Each man should act independently in his own individual way. And then he would be as great as the man of the past. The attraction of all original action is justified if we look into the reason of self-trust. This inquiry leads us to the very source of genius, virtue, and life. This source is spontaneity of instinct. This is also called intuition or primary wisdom. It is in this that all things find their common origin. Every person is aware of the difference between the voluntary acts of the mind and his involuntary perceptions. He also knows that his involuntary perception or his intuitions come to him from the oversoul. This oversoul is the primary source of all life and all activities. It is this oversoul that unites or brings harmony in all diverse elements. Man should allow the divine to address directly to his soul. Then he should act boldly in accordance with his inspiration thus received. Only then his actions would be original. The next topic is a relation of the soul to divine spirit. The relations of the soul to the divine spirit are so pure that it is not good to seek any external help. When God speaks, he should communicate not one thing but all things. Whenever a mind is simple and receives divine wisdom, old things pass away. The centuries are the enemy of the sanity and authority of the soul. Time and space are but the psychological colors that eye makes, but the soul is light. The next topic is slavery to the past and future. Man is timid and apologetic. He is no longer upright. He dares not say, "I think I am." He always quoted some sage or saint. He is ashamed before the blade of grass or the blowing rose. The roses make no references to the former roses or better ones. They are what they are. They exist for God today. The rose is perfect in every moment of its existence. But this is not in the case of the man. He laments the past or foresees the future. He cannot be happy and strong until he too lives in the present. The next one is self-reliance, freedom from slavery. Self-reliance means freedom from slavery to the past as well as to the future. We shall not always set so great a price on a few texts, on a few lives. Most of the people are like children who repeat the sentences spoken by their grandmothers. But when they grow up, they repeat the sentences of men of intellect about whom they have read in the books. But they should not give too much importance to what the great men have said or written. If we live truly, we shall see truly. It is easy for the strong man to be strong, as it is for the weak to be weak. When we have new perception, we shall gladly disburden the memory of old rubbish. When a man lives with God, his voice shall be as sweet as the murmur of the brook and the rustle of the corn. The next topic is the highest truth. The highest truth in this regard remains unsaid. Probably it cannot be said. All that we say is for of remembering the intuition. When God is nearby, when you have life in yourself, it is not by any known or accustomed way. The way, the thought, the good shall be wholly strange and new. It shall exclude example and experience. The soul pursues the self-existence of truth and right, and it calms itself with knowing that all things go well. Life does not mean merely living. It says in the moment of transition from a past to a new state, in the upsurging of an aim. The world hated the fact that the soul becomes. It is so because that forever degrades the past, turns all the riches into poverty, all reputation to a shameful condition, and confounds the saint with a rogue, and shows Jesus and Judas equally aside. The next one is the oversoul and self-existence. To talk of reliance is a poor way of speaking. Self-existence is the attribute of the supreme cause, and it constitutes the measure of good by the degree in which it enters into all lower forms. All the real things are so by so much virtue as they contain. Commerce, husbandry, hunting, whaling, war, eloquence, personal weight, all are somewhat impure actions. Self-existence is a higher reality than self-reliance. Everything in nature reveals the efficacy of the self-sufficing and therefore self-relying soul. Power is in nature, and it can be got only if one follows nature. Nature suffers nothing to remain in her kingdoms which cannot help itself. Man does not stand in awe of man. His genius is not admonished to stay at home. We must go alone. A silent church is better than any preaching. But our isolation must not be mechanical, but it's a spiritual. It must be elevation. We should not have any weak curiosity about people, nor should we banker after cheap popularity. We need not try to live up the expectation of the people with whom we talk. We have lived with our friends and relations for quite a long time. But a stage comes when it is not possible to live with them any longer. We should not live with them for the sake of appearances, but for the sake of truth. We should maintain our relationship according to the eternal law that all human beings are one. We must not discriminate between man and man, but it is not easy to follow the eternal law. If one feels that it is easy, we have to come to the conclusion that he is in an illusion. Such a person does not understand the nature of the divine. It is the essence of all, and it demands something godlike in a man to realize and trust the oversoul. The next one is the inner light. People think that the rejection of popular standard is the rejection of all standard. The bold sensualist uses the name of philosophy to gild his sins. But the law of consciousness abides. There are two confessionals, as one of which man must be shrives. One is the direct, the other is the reflect way. The reflect way means that you do what the world expects you to do, that you do your duty towards your friends and relations and act in a way in which the world expects you to act. The first direct one is, it's a way implies us that you boldly reject the social expectations and act according to the light you get from the oversoul. The self-reliant person must not abide by any external conditions, popular code, but he should follow fearlessly the dictates of his own inner self. His heart should be high as well as faithful, and his sight clear, so that he may in right earnest in the society. Okay, so far we have discussed the different topics in his essay Self-Reliance. The remaining topics I will discuss in my next session. Thank you.